Hello friends, welcome back to day 6 of our sampler quilt. We are making our 6th block today, and it's going to be a pretty easy one because I'm going to show you a method to make a whole bunch of half square triangles at one time. I want to first start off, for those who haven't tuned in to the earlier episodes, and tell you a few things about this quilt. It will be a lap size, and it will be 12 12-inch blocks plus some sashing and border. And all of the blocks are different, and all of them are beginner friendly. I have purposely picked out blocks that I thought a beginner could master. So I hope you are joining along with me and have pulled out your scraps and are making a block a day too. I actually am making 2 blocks a day because I make a test block before I start each day, and so I have 2 different colorways going. The colorway I'm using for this channel is the Buzzworthy by Canvas Studio. I have 2 packages of these 10-inch layer cakes, and I'm not going to use even 1 package of them. It's not going to take near that much fabric. And I had a package of white Kona cotton solids that I'm using for the background fabric. Now, if you have yardage, or if you're wanting to make your own, yardage would be cheaper, or some fat quarters would be perfect. So there's 2 things that will make your block turn out better in the end. Actually, there's 3 things. One is accurate cutting. The second is accurate seam allowances. So test your seam allowance to make sure you're doing a quarter-inch seam, or as I have started doing, a scant quarter-inch seam. It seems to work better for me, which is just a hair smaller than a quarter-inch. And then if there's any excess, I can trim them down. The third thing is ironing, and I iron more than most people. I iron every seam as I sew it. Some people just finger press a lot, and that's fine. Their quilts turn out beautiful, but I like the precision of having the pieces all ironed as I go. All right, let's put this aside, and let's start on today's block. Okay, for today's block, we need an 8-inch square of our background fabric, an 8-inch square of some dark fabric, and then 4 3.5-inch squares of a contrasting fabric. I'm going to use these 2 8-inch squares to show you how to make 8 half square triangles at one time. We've been doing them 2 at a time, and you can do them 4 at a time, and you can do them 8 at a time. So I am going to show you this, but feel free to do them 2 at a time like we've been doing. You would need 8 4-inch squares. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is draw a line diagonally, both directions. And I've got out my rotating cutting mat, although it's broken and it doesn't work right. I'm going to see if it will work good enough. Now I'm going to take this over to the machine and I'm going to sew a scant 1/4 inch seam down both sides going both directions. I forgot to turn the camera on, but can you see my lines, my stitching lines? Okay, let's go back to the cutting table. I had placed pins in it before I started sewing just to make sure it didn't move around on me. Now, the first thing I want to do is cut right through the center of all this, and that should be 4 inches from the edge, which it is, so that's a good thing. Now I'm going to cut this direction right through the center. And again, that should be 4 inches. And it is. Okay. Now I want to cut through these lines, and you could do it with your blade, but I'm just going to do it with scissors. Okay, we now have 8 half square triangles. They are going to be slightly bigger than 3.5 inches that we need them to be, so I'm going to use my handy dandy ruler to cut them down to size. Now, here's the caveat in making them this way. This is faster and it seems so much simpler, but you end up with your edges being on the bias, and that'll stretch real easy. So you have to be careful to not stretch these, and when you're sewing them to another block, you don't want to tug on it unless you need it to stretch a little, because you'll end up with a square that's no longer a square, a warped square. So first of all, let's iron these. And we want to iron all but 2 of them to the dark side. I had the hardest time figuring out how to iron all these to make sure all the seams nested for this particular block, but I think I got it figured out. We'll soon see. Okay, that's one I did to the light side. We just need 2 of them to the light side, and I'm going to set those to a side. They're going to go in the middle of our block. On opposite sides of each other. Okay, let's trim these to 3.5 inches, just like these squares. To do this, I'm going to use this, this is a 4.5 inch ruler. If I had a 3.5 inch ruler, it'd be even easier because I could have just lined the corners up at each end, but I don't. So I'm using this 4.5, and it has a 45-degree line that I can line up anywhere up and down this line, but I want to make sure that I have 3.5 inches all the way around. And so I've got a little bit extra all the way around here, and we should have. I purposely cut that square about a 1/2 inch bigger, or a 1/4 inch bigger all the way around, so we would be able to trim them and have them perfect. Now when I do this side, I'm lining both of these up on the 1 inch, since this is a 4.5 inch ruler, and this will give me 3.5 inches. Okay, let me trim the rest of these up real quick, and then we'll put our block together. Okay, I don't think we'll need that anymore. Let's put our block together. Oh, we also needed 4 3.5 background squares, and I didn't cut those out, so let me do that real quick. Okay, sorry about that. All right, let's put our block together. The 4 background squares are going to go in the corners. And this square is going to go here, 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 and here. Now let's do the center first so we can get use our ones that are ironed the wrong way. We're going to put the 2 that are ironed towards the light side opposite corners from each other. And then we're going to put the rest of them there, 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 and there. And this is going to be our block. Okay, we're going to put it together the same way we've been doing all the others. I'm going to fold these over on top of each other. Take them to the sewing machine, stacked in the right order. I'll start with a leader and do a 1/4 inch seam and chain them all. Then I'll come back to the top, open up the first one, and add this to it, and add this whole row, then add this whole row. Okay, let's go sew. Now, when you have two blocks, half square triangles that lay the same like this, you want to make sure those are nesting together right at the seam, and one of them should be ironed this way and one that way. That's why we ironed the two blocks differently. Once again, they're nesting and they should be going different directions. They're nesting, they should be going different directions. We have this all sewn together. Now we need to flip it over and decide how we're going to iron our blocks. I'm going to iron all these this way, leaving what was already ironed where it is. These this way, these towards me, these away from me. I tried to pick away so that you don't have to bend the half square triangle back on itself. It doesn't like doing that. Messed up that one. Okay. I think it's all going to go together right, so I like it when that happens. Now we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and sew our rows together. And if we did it right, and I think we did, one side will be ironed one direction and one the other. That reduces the bulk in our quilt, and it also helps to strengthen it. By ironing them open, you've got a place they can come apart. It tugs apart. And by ironing them to one side or the other, they'll be stronger. So you can pin it if you want. I'll pin this first row. But I can feel them nesting. If you slide them up against each other, they'll stop when they nest right there together. I hope that makes sense. Let's see if I can get this all put together without having to rip out a seam. Okay, I'm going to take it over and sew all 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 rows. Yes. Okay, our block is done. Let's get it ironed and then measure it to see how we did. I'm going to iron all these the same direction, although at this point it doesn't matter because nothing's going to be crossing over a seam. after this. Okay, I see a couple places it doesn't look perfect, but I'm not going to take it out because it was probably the block before it that was not sewn quite, because this one doesn't go quite to the corner here or there. Hopefully your points will be more pointy than mine. Let's see how we did size-wise. Put the center seam on a line and this center seam on a line. Okay. Here's the problem, I think. I think I didn't iron it out good enough. At least right there. Okay, yeah, it's going to be just about right. Ever so slightly shave off. Now remember, this needs to be 12.5 because we need 1/4 inch on each side for our seam allowances when we put the quilt together. Okay, got that all lined up, and it looks like we're going to be good on this one too. If I don't move it, we are. This should stick over this line by 1/4 inch. This time, I'm just going to line it up on an edge, and it should stick over by about 1/2 inch. Oh, my ruler's sticking. Okay, we're pretty close. The only thing is I'm just not real happy with those corners. But I had one on my other block I wasn't happy with. I tried to fix it and it made it worse because it was the block before that was off ever so slightly. Okay, let's compare it with all of our other blocks. We're going to have a very pretty quilt. And I'll show you my practice block that's on my other colorway so you can see what it looks like in different colorways. And here was where I was trying to fix my block and I just made it worse. So that's why I'm going to leave this one alone. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this and you've learned something from it. And now we're halfway done with our quilt blocks. We will come back tomorrow and start on block number 7. If you would, please like, subscribe, share, comment, whatever. And I will see you tomorrow. Remember, whatever you do, do it to the glory of the Lord.